It's been a really long time since I've played Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links. I played it when it first came out. I played it back when dinosaurs and water were like the two best decks, so understand that I haven't looked at it in a very long time. Now, every once in a while, I get comments on my videos about Duel Links, referencing Duel Links, so I kind of know a little bit about what goes on, but in general, I am completely ignorant to anything that happens in Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links. But I just saw that they had a new ban list, and I guess it goes into effect on the 26th. That's like a huge heads up. That's like weeks in advance. We don't get those in the TCG. It's just like, here's the ban list. It's in effect at the end of the week. Make do with it what you will. But yeah, they're giving them like 2 weeks notice. That's kind of cool. Anyway, though, this list is crazy. Crazy for different reasons than you might think. Coming from the perspective of a TCG player, I didn't recognize half these cards. I mean, when I saw this list, like, part of the reason I wanted to make this video is just to like talk about how cards like these ones can be like OP in a Duel Links setting versus the TCG setting. And I think it's kind of cool. I honestly do. I think it's kind of interesting that cards that never saw play in the TCG actually can be good enough to make the ban list in Duel Links as long as you change the format a little bit. It seems like from this list that there's a lot more cheese strategies, and I think this is happening because they have 20 card deck lists and 4,000 life points. So you have cards that in the TCG just wouldn't have done enough damage. Maybe they do like 3,000 damage or maybe like 2,500 damage, and that wasn't good enough in the TCG. But it seems like in Duel Links, at least, those types of combos are a lot better. Now, there's two things that I want to mention. First off, I don't know any of the skills in Duel Links, so if I sound stupid when I'm talking about these cards because maybe they work with a particular skill, I don't know what they are. I don't want to look up these decks and stuff because I think that sort of ruins what this video is supposed to be. It's more like a TCG perspective on these cards getting hit, not so much someone that is in the TCG looking up the Duel Links metagame and then making a decision based on that. And then also I want to mention that if you're a TCG player, one of the things on the Duel Links ban list that's super weird is that so they're semi-limited cards. You can only play 2 copies total of any of the cards on the semi-limited list. So if you had 2 cards you wanted to play and they're both semi-limited, you weren't playing 2 copies of both of them. You'd have to either just play 2 copies of one and 0 of the other, or 1 copy of both of them. That's actually kind of cool. It wouldn't work in the TCG because our ban list is so long, but I think it's kind of an interesting take on it. And I don't think they really, I remember when the ban list was first announced in Duel Links, and that wasn't really articulated very well to the people that were playing, especially a lot of TCG players that I know that were playing Duel Links were like, what the heck's going on? But that's just one thing to keep in mind. Anyway, let's jump right in. So the first card and the only limited card is Massive Morph. Target 1 face-up monster your opponent controls. Its attack and defense become double its current attack and defense, but it cannot attack directly. There's like so many things that are like weird about this card. The fact that it targets your opponent's monster, the fact that thing can't attack directly, because I was thinking like, oh, maybe you Massive Morphed and then you like enemy controller. I know enemy controller is like really big in Duel Links, and I thought, oh, maybe you can seal it, attack for game. You can't even do that. But what I found when I looked up this image, and this was kind of an accident, I never in 1,000 years would have guessed this if I had not looked up this card's image for this video, but I guess the reason this card's limited is because it comboed with Amazoness Swordswoman, which apparently is like good enough to limit in the Duel Links metagame. I think that's hilarious. Yeah, Amazoness Swordswoman never saw any play in the TCG. This card never saw play in the TCG, but I think that just the combination of the 20 card decks, so you see these combos more often, and the fact that there's only 4,000 life points means that these combos actually work. And man, I can't believe that there's a format where Massive Morph is limited. Anyway, let's move on. So the next one is Rose Lover. Yeah, I can understand this one. This is the semi-limited list, so we're going to start with that because the Massive Morph, like I said, was the only limited card. So now we're on to the semi-limited. And Rose Lover is actually a decent card in both formats, I think. It was released way too late in the TCG to actually be relevant. I know that Sylvans are like a huge force in Duel Links. Rose Lover was good in Sylvans, but by the time it came out in the TCG, Sylvans were long past their sort of prime. Sylvans in the TCG were best in 2014. Rose Lover was released much after they had been sort of hit on the ban list indirectly. They were never actually good enough in the TCG to be directly hit on the ban list, but they were sort of taken down a few notches by a couple cards being hit. But yeah, I can actually understand why this one was hit, and it makes sense in the context of Duel Links Links as well. Now, the one that is confusing to me is SYLVAN MARSHALLEAF is semi-limited. In the TCG, SYLVAN MARSHALLEAF is probably like the 7th best SYLVAN card, behind like Hermitry, or behind last Hermitry, Sage Koya, Charity, all sorts of SYLVAN cards. Why is this hit? Is this card just like too good because it blows up monsters? Is it too good because it normal summons? I guess they don't have Lone Fire Blossom in Duel Links. This one like really, I guess I don't know if they have Sylvan Charity. Does that card not exist? I know like Rose Lover I guess is summoning her. I think they have Hermitry. I guess they don't have Exceed monsters though. So I don't know. I have no idea why SYLVAN MARSHALLEAF is on this list. I think it's kind of funny because like I said, it's not really like when Sylvans were big, they weren't big because of SYLVAN MARSHALLEAF. That was like one of the least important cards of the entire strategy. A lot of people just played 1 or 2 copies just in a 40 card deck, so I can't imagine why this card is so powerful in Duel Links. If anything, I would have thought that Koma Shrumo would be on this list because Koma Shrumo, from what I understand, is really good in Duel Links because it excavates 5 cards, which is like a huge portion of your deck compared to the TCG where that wasn't that big a portion. But yeah, SYLVAN MARSHALLEAF, kind of weird. Next we have Cyber Petite Angel. Now I have to admit, I'm pretty sure that Duel Links has Senju and Sonic Bird to search ritual monsters and spells. I don't think they have access to Manju, which searches both. In that case, I can kind of see why this card actually is halfway decent. I know Cyber Angels were like really big in Duel Links. Apparently they were still big enough to actually hit on this list. But I also think, I forgot, because I looked up like the whole list before I did this video, but I kind of forgot most of it because they were all like weird cards I'd never heard of. But I believe that there are some Cyber Angel cards on the Forbidden Limited list already, which means that by hitting this card, which is probably just like a consistency card for Cyber Angels, it actually hurts them quite a bit. Now in the TCG, this card was never played. I was experimented as like a one of sometimes, but the fact of the matter is that Cyber Angel decks don't really exist in the TCG. They existed as like a supplemental engine to the Herald of Perfection strategy, but not as like a main strategy, which means that cards like this just weren't played at all. But it's kind of, I can understand, once again, much like with Rose Lover, I can actually look at this card and say, yeah, I can understand in the context of Duel Links, where ritual summoning seems to be pretty impactful, why a card like Cyber Petite Angel was actually pretty good. Now the one that I can't understand is Hero's Shadow Scout. I guess the idea, and once again, I haven't looked up any list, but I guess the idea, just judging by one of the other cards that was on the Forbidden Limited list, which was Cup of Ace, apparently there must be like a mill strategy. I guess in the context of Duel Links, a mill strategy would actually be halfway decent because you have this card, gives your opponent 3 cards, and then they start with only a 20 card deck and they're drawing, I don't know how many cards you open, maybe like 4 cards? Do you draw 4 cards in Duel Links? I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, that'd be like taking your opponent on a 13 cards in deck, then you do some more crazy stuff, maybe mill out their entire deck. In the TCG, it's been like literally over 5 years since a mill strategy was viable. Those strategies were like halfway decent when Morphing Jar was still in the game, and Morphing Jar number 2, they were sort of like an empty jar deck, but I don't think that strategy has been viable for many years. It doesn't help that in the TCG, and I think even somewhat in the Duel Links format, the game is pretty much just all graveyard based now, so the decks like that just wouldn't work. There's also a lot of hand traps, which I know Duel Links doesn't have a lot of, but basically they're just like monsters that you can like discard from your hand to like do stuff, interact with your opponent on their first turn, and those cards make those decks kind of bad. But I guess it's like, man, I can't believe there's like a format, once again, where like Hero's Shadow Scout is like something that's been hit. I just find that hilarious. But yeah, I guess, I mean, mill decks aren't fun to play against, so if they were sort of plaguing the Duel Links metagame, that's probably a good thing that I got hit. If you play Duel Links, please let me know. Was this card actually played, or is this just like a preemptive hit on a deck that sometimes is annoying to play against? So I'm really curious if this mill strategy was actually good enough to be hit, or if Konami just doesn't like those types of decks in any of their games. Next up, we have sort of 2 cards at the same time that I think are supposed to go together, and that is first, Secret Pass to the Treasures. Select one face-up monster with an attack equal to 1,000 points or less on your side of the field. During the turn this card is activated, select a monster can attack your opponent's life points directly. When I first read this, which once again, I've never seen this card in my life, I thought that, okay, I guess there's some crazy combo with it. I think the card that it was comboing with was Assault Armor. This equips to a warrior monster, gives it 300 attack, and it can attack twice. From what I can see though, that's only 2,600 damage. It's a 2-card combo, well, 3 cards if you count the warrior monster, that is 2,600 damage. Maybe they have like some other card that like boosts the monster's attack by more. Even so though, that seems like a 4-card combo to actually kill your opponent. Are those types of combos actually good in Duel Links? That man, it's just like people complain about the break my board formats in TCG, but it seems like in Duel Links there's so many of these like weird OTK lists just because the deck size is so small. But yeah, this looks like a 2-card combo plus some other stuff that actually kills your opponent. By semi-limiting both these cards, it means they can only play 1 copy of each of them, which in a 20-card list basically makes them like real semi-limited in the TCG. If you had 2 copies of both in like a 40-card list, it's pretty similar to having 1 copy of both in a 20-card list. It also seems pretty susceptible to back row destruction because you would just destroy the assault armor. I don't know what type of back row destruction is in Duel Links, but it seems like this strategy, I don't think it would be viable if both these cards are at 1 copy per deck. It feels really weird, by the way, saying that a semi-limited card is basically limited because you can only have 1 copy in your deck in the case of this 2-card combo here, because you would only be able to play 1, even though they're semi-limited. Very strange. The next card is one that makes total sense. Enemy Controller was extremely good in the TCG at multiple formats for many years, and I also know that it was extremely frustrating to play against in Duel Links. It seemed like a lot of the comments, basically the 2 comments that I saw about Duel Links on my videos, were usually talking about Sylvans and Econ, and usually in both cases complaining about those types of cards. And yeah, so I can perfectly understand why Econ will be on this list. It's always good in sort of these slower formats or these formats where there's a limited card pool. This thing saw play in all of like the battle packs that it was released in, and also it's just seen play in a variety of formats in the TCG, so this one doesn't surprise me too much. One that does kind of surprise me is the next one, and that is Amazoness Onslaught. So I guess Amazoness is good in Duel Links. Like, besides that combo that I talked about earlier, it seems like a real Amazoness deck is like a thing. So this is like a trap card, and it says, once per turn during the battle phase, you can special summon 1 Amazoness monster from your hand, and if you do, it gains 500 attack till the end of this turn, even if this card leaves the field. After damage calculation, if your Amazoness monster battled an opponent's monster while this card was already face upon your spawn trap card zone, you can banish that opponent's monster. If this card is on the field destroyed by sent to the graveyard, you can special summon guy from your grave. Yeah, I mean, I guess this card seems good. I mean, like, the Amazoness don't do anything in the TCG because they just don't have enough good cards, but I suppose in a very limited format, this card actually sees play. I think it's super cool that, like, because like with Cyber Angels, like they saw play as like an engine in the TCG, and like kind of like it was like a decent rogue strategy with Herald of Perfection, but like Amazoness have like never seen any play in the TCG, so it actually is kind of cool that they saw play in the Duel Links format. It's kind of at its best, I think Duel Links is a great way to make bad cards in the TCG actually good, and I think that Amazoness, if they are good in the Duel Links format, is a perfect example of that. The next card, never seen before, Pulse Mines, and apparently this was released pretty recently in Code of the Duelist. If you control a machine monster, change your opponent's attack position monsters, if any, to defense position, also until the end of the turn. If a monster is normal special summon to your opponent's field, change them to defense position. Why is this? How is this card good? It's like, man, it requires you to have a machine monster, and then basically it's like Wingstorm of Aniqua. Why is this? I have no idea. I have literally no clue why Pulse Mines is played. Someone explain it in the comments, because I don't see why this card is good in any format, let alone one that seems like it has a bunch of FTKs and OTKs. Someone please explain this. And the last card was one that was now unlimited, which is Red Eyes Spirit. It's basically just a Call the Haunted for a Red Eyes card, but it's a trap card, or it's a normal trap card, not a continuous trap card. I think Red Eyes at one point, like Red Eyes Zombie, was played. From the brief postings that I've seen about Duel Links, I believe a Red Eyes deck. I mean, it must have been played if this thing was on the ban list. Must have just been power crept out of the game by all these other Sylvan decks and Cyber Angel decks and Mill decks, apparently, and OTK decks. I have no idea. It seems like people must just not be playing Red Eyes if Konami's willing to give this card back to 3. In a Duel Links format, I don't think this card was, it probably was actually pretty good, because from what I can remember from playing the game, there wasn't a lot of recursion, and a card like this that's really has no drawbacks, I can see it being fairly decent in a Duel Links format. Anyway, though, that is going to end this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you're a Duel Links video, this video was probably super cringy because I have no idea what's going on, but I really do think it's kind of interesting. I played both games for a period of my life, like 2 months of it, and it was kind of interesting to see which cards were good there and not good in the TCG. A lot of the cards that I remember being insanely powerful in Duel Links back in the day just weren't ever good in the actual physical card game, and a lot of these ones, like, I've never heard of, and I think that's kind of cool that Konami can make two formats with different card pools, but the same cards. Like, all these cards did exist in the TCG at one point, but in the limited format of Duel Links with a slightly different rule set with the life points and the skills that they have, and the deck size, they can actually be like metagame defining. I will see you guys later though. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.